Second Cup, brought to you by The Nickel Plate. Sit, sip, savor, and shop.
Good morning to you. It's 8 o'clock on the start of your Thursday morning. Glad you're with us for Second Cup. Hope you're off to a great start and are getting ready for Friday.
Can't wait.
Do you know what's so funny?
What's
I was
that,
thinking
Edward?
about this. Because I was talking about this yesterday. We come in so early in the morning.
Yeah.
And I'm sure if you're up early with us, you do the same thing at your job as well. Maybe you wake up early in the morning, but you're not at work yet. But we are at work in the middle of the night. And I often say to the producers when I look up at the clock, I'm Katie's off. I come in a lot earlier.
Yeah.
But I look up at the clock and I'm like, oh my gosh, it is 3:45 in the morning.
You come in and you're like, the first number is a 3.
Right.
Yeah.
What are we doing here?
You know what's tough? It's a tough shift. I think it ages you, and it's like because you shouldn't be waking up in the middle of the night. It's like when you're supposed to be sleeping,
Right.
And it's so tough. And like then people are like, oh, can't you just stay a little later? I'm like, no, I can't. No, all I think about is when I'm going to sleep again.
Right.
Like my whole life revolves around when is my next time to get some of my eyes closed.
I get
so
that.
no, yeah, you do. Like you're to our bosses. I mean, like it's tough. It's a super tough shift. And like if anyone works like an overnight shift or something like that, we feel for you.
Yeah.
And we're there for you.
Well, my point is that, our day is pretty much done while people are getting started with theirs.
Yeah.
And so I'm already thinking about Friday. People are just getting
That's
started
right.
for Thursday.
Like I'm not even out the door for work on Thursday. That is a good point. Because once 7 o'clock rolls around for us, like I just did, did a story, and now we've got this thing that we've got some web thing we got to learn at 8:30, some learning thing, and then
look at Lauren's gun.
The
beer's making iced tea.
You know what, Lauren? I actually think it's this guy.
Do I bring it out in you?
Sometimes I'll be like, Ed, I totally edited the other day, because I'm like a big take the 24-hour rule, take a deep breath. Not Mr. Firecracker over here. So sometimes I feel like you're wearing off, and that on me, and that could be a good thing.
Yeah,
because
you're the 24-hour rule. I'm the 24-second rule.
You are the 24-second rule, but I'm leaning now toward the 24-second rule at times. So, yeah, Lauren, thanks.
So funny.
I blame Edward, but I'm in. It's all good.
Hey, did you watch the president's speech last night?
I did not.
Okay, we're not going to talk about that.
Okay, yeah. My son had a concert last night, and then I recorded the Sabres game and watched that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm sure it was great.
Denise, I used to work third shift. She says it was hard.
Yeah, Denise. Well, like everyone's sleeping, or everyone expects like you to just be normal during the day.
Yeah.
By Friday, do you even? I don't even. If I make it past like 8 o'clock on Friday, that is big.
Well, we're having friends over for dinner tomorrow night, and I
hope it's an early dinner.
Well, so I'm nervous because Fridays are tough for me, and I try to explain that, but it doesn't necessarily connect when the calendar is open on Friday night.
Or no, it's the best. Like, oh, well, I worked the other day. I got there early too. One day you did it. Do it for like years. Like when some people come in, they're like, oh, I worked the morning show for like 3 days. I'm like, woo, confetti, let's go.
Party. Okay, so Howard says, I feel for you guys. I worked at 4 a.m. to noon at the job, then worked from home till 5 or so every day. Problem is after retirement, I can't get out of that schedule. I know, and it's kind of like your body clock kind of acclimates to
So on the weekends, I play hockey every Saturday and Sunday at 6:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
I don't even set an alarm because I know I'm waking up. If I can sleep, I'm like, ooh, the first number's a 5. I'm like, yes, feeling good, get up and get ready to go.
I wonder, let me ask you this question because, this is one of the topics we want to talk about here today.
Sure.
What do you think about working from home? We often talk about this, but I don't know that we actually hit the statistics that came out within the last couple of days, because we ran a story this morning, and I think this is really interesting, that nearly half of remote workers who were surveyed in a poll say they would quit their job if they were forced to come back to work.
Okay. Would they really, though?
And I see, that is my question also. And if they do, would that mean that we, or the employer, is able to find somebody who's better
and will come in?
Right.
Yeah, that's it's because you can say that. I mean, I remember when we worked from home for a couple months, like in the height of the pandemic. So you hated it. I was like, this is great. So I never forget. I was asked, hey, how do you like working from home? I'm like, It's awesome. I love going downstairs. I'm making my food. All right, we're gonna have you come back. Like, why didn't I say it's the worst
I
thing
hate
ever?
it.
Yeah. So we got to be home. I remember like March, April, May, June. I was back in July, but you know what? It was fine.
Yeah.
Like once then like coming back to work, I wish it could have been home all summer because it was a really hot summer
Yes.
of 2020. It was what it was. And I enjoy coming. Then you get to see you guys again.
Yeah. Anita, I'm not disciplined enough to work from home, she says. Luckily, I never had that option. Sarah says, I work from home and love it. We have an office to go to, but we're not required to. If I was required to come in, it would be a childcare mess.
See, and that, like for Sarah, that's spot on. When you're juggling a young child, that is a totally different story. Plus, there's been studies too. Like, again, depends probably on what you read, but you do see that people are just as productive from home because they don't want to lose it. But some are like Anita said, I couldn't do it.
No.
And, at least she's honest with herself.
Well, see, I'm the complete opposite. When I'm working from home, I feel like I can't leave work. Like if the computer's upstairs, I'm going to bring it with me wherever I go. Or
Edward,
I know.
you work way too much.
I know.
Like, I don't want to say you make us all look bad because I've come to terms with the fact that you are a 24/7 news person.
Yeah.
And that's in your DNA. You're not going to change it. Like every once in a while on my phone, I'll accidentally hit the email button like later in the day because it's right next to the sports button. And I'm like, oh, and I'll be like, Ed, why are you emailing everyone? 2, 3, 4 p.m. We get all these texts from you. And I'm like, take a break. But it's who you are. And, we love you for it. So you're not going to change it. And I get it.
Well, it's difficult. And I think, for me, like working from home would be a nightmare because you're so disconnected.
Yeah.
So I kind of feel like I need to be connected.
And people like you, like people who like to like be around other people, who talk to people, like being from home is tough. I don't know. I like being by myself, so it was fine with me. Yeah. Let's see.
I am Melly. Paula says,
yes,
I'm more productive at home. Coworkers distract me. That's interesting. Marguerite says, glad I was retired by the time everyone was working from home. I would miss the coworkers. If I had small children, I would never be able to work from home. But, here's the other thing, too. Melly says, looking for new employment, need to land a wonderful job that'll actually pay the bills. Can you imagine if she could work from home, Kelsey? No, you're an EMT. That would be awful.
Oh, no.
But I wonder, though, do you prefer a flexible work schedule as opposed to like a hard and fast, you must be in the office or you're working from home?
Well, I think if you have enough pushback, the employer is going to have to be a little more flexible.
Sure.
It really depends how many people you have. What if you have an office of like 10?
Right.
And you're like, all right, I want people to come back. I could see too, the mayor was talking about having people come to downtown so they can spend their money on the businesses downtown. It makes sense. There's pros and cons to both.
I hear
both sides.
Should city workers be working from home? Like you are tasked with, first of all, I didn't even really know that city workers were still working from home.
Secondly, I didn't either until this morning. I was like, wow, it's a lot of people working
Secondly, should city workers be working from home? We are literally the taxpayers are paying these salaries. Are we getting our money's worth?
Yeah, I don't
I'm
know.
just putting it out there.
Yeah.
Just raising this hypothetical, rhetorical question. Crystal says, I worked from home around 2009 and loved it. We had to earn the chance to keep our production numbers up for it to stay that way. Maybe that's the case. If your production, you're showing and you've got those metrics to prove it's worth it.
You're right. And I think like someone like Crystal who meets those metrics where, maybe you're doing something and you need to do this amount of things each day and you do more from home than you could at work. That makes sense. You do save a lot too on like the drive-in, gas, lunch, all that other stuff as well.
No doubt. Kelly, though, says childcare is tough, very expensive. Once daycare was done for my daughter, I missed the girls. But being able to save that $200 to $300 a week was nice. I never had the ability to work from home. I work in healthcare. Bless the people who could. The break from home is nice. Actually, that's true. That's kind of how I see work sometimes, too. Like it's a break from being in the house. To be able to be with and help others is a bonus.
I know when my kids were little, I used to be like going to work to relax.
Right. Jeff says, Ed and Aaron, great job. Maybe compromise. Allowed to wear your jammy pants on the bottom and sport coat and shirt and tie up high.
Jeff, good morning, bud. Hope you're doing well.
Susan, Aunt Sue, good morning. Granddaughter works part-time in retail, but would like another job she could do at home. That's actually a great idea. Having 2 jobs.
Yes. And I know like a lot of the
pay the bills.
Like when you call, say you have to call your credit card company.
Sure.
Those or JetBlue, they're working from home.
Yes.
And you could do something like that. well, I don't know the exact title it would be, but they do have those like call center jobs that you can now do
Correct.
from home. So if you're looking for something and you want to just wait till somebody calls you and answer their question, like, I can't find my ticket in the
Right.
wallet. So
Easy enough.
yeah.
Barbara says, I work from home half the time. It saves me money on gas, gives me flexibility. See, I think a lot of people want that flexibility.
Yeah, and she can also work when there are travel bans. So that's interesting. With the weather, oh, I can't go to work, but hey, you can work from home.
Connie says also the employer pays rent for their space. And see, that is kind of, I think, what employers are focused on, right?
Yeah.
You know, they have this space, they want you to come in, they want the collaboration. You know, Zoom is one thing, but like doing it in person is a completely different thing.
Exactly.
Right?
And like I have my own business in New York of one employee, me, but I can tell you the amount of like paperwork and taxes and everything else, like my accountants always send me something, sign this, and here's, you know, $25 to have a business in New York. Here's blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I couldn't imagine having employees.
Sure.
Like how difficult it is to manage all that. And I just have one.
Well, and so, you know, CEOs are, you know, kind of at the top. They're not necessarily managing employees every day. They're managing the bottom line.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's tough. I'm sure you see it as well in your own business.
But I like what John is saying. Those of us who are productive from home, let us be.
Exactly.
I think what you're saying is like, we got to make sure everyone is productive, because if you're not, that is,
you know, private business is one thing, but on the city's dime, I'm wondering, like, is that actually necessary?
Yeah. Well, I know who can find out.
Raising that hypothetical here.
Like I said, if I ever see you at the door of the camera, nobody home.
Okay, well, speaking of,
all right.
So my story aired, and I appreciate everyone who's weighed in here about the story about Goodyear.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah, emitting this cancer-causing chemical at levels that are higher than the current legal limit. I'm just learning, though, and this is kind of interesting. DEC sent me a statement that they are holding a listening session now to present information about the recent consent order that was issued. And we told you about that last night and this morning. You know, DEC is ruling against Goodyear for violating terms of their permit. You know, and again, all of this connected to emissions of that cancer-causing chemical. But now they want the public to be able to ask questions about this. What's interesting to me in this statement, thank you, Lauren, I appreciate that. Crystal, absolutely. You know, it was a lot of hard work, but I'm glad that we could get it on the air.
How long did it take you?
Months.
I thought so.
And months and months.
Months.
I started this in October. So, yeah, while I was down in Tampa, I was getting ready for this.
Yeah, because the video you have there, it's still green in
right
some spots. So that makes sense. So I saw you working away on that. I'm always like, ooh, I wonder what he's doing.
It was a good one. But, you know, what's interesting to me is that the DEC, in sending me this whole long statement here and some background, has told me basically nothing to see here, folks.
Oh.
And that...
No, you just made him dig in even more.
Right. Kind of makes me a little concerned. What the spokesperson is telling me is that based on available data, potential emissions, they're not even acknowledging that their own documentation shows
that they did have the emissions.
Have emissions higher than the current legal standard. The DEC spokesperson tells me potential emissions from the Goodyear facility have not been shown to pose a significant or immediate risk to public health.
Okay.
Now,
so break that down for me.
Why is that concerning?
Yes.
Because their own data shows that there is a level of up to 7 times exceeding the current legal standard.
Wow.
So that is right over the plant.
Okay.
Right? So
potentially,
right?
Wow.
And extending out into the neighborhood. Their own data shows this, but they are saying that there is no immediate risk to the public health, despite the fact that you can breathe in this chemical, despite the fact that it can be absorbed through the skin.
Wow. So they saw an increase, like you had some people who
John,
cancer.
I don't know. Can you pull up that document? Because maybe it's in my web story that we can link here in the comments as well. Amanda wondering, what chemical is it? It's called orthotoluidine.
Okay, I was wondering that too.
It is a known carcinogen. and has caused cancer in some of the workers, as you mentioned.
Yes, yeah. And
So
I'd be curious too, since prevailing winds are mostly west to east, if people on the eastern side of this plant had an increase as well.
and that's what the lawyer who I spoke with said, wondering if the people who live east of the plant even
So I thought about
know
that. Yeah.
what's going on here. Anita says, have I looked into the effects of power lines in people's backyard? I have not. Here's a link in the comments here to my story because they were fined $15,000. This is the kind of the update here, and I'm working on another story where DEC says nothing to see here, folks. But John, maybe what you can do is pull up the document showing the air mapping in my story from yesterday. So Della wants to know, what about the workers being tested?
Well, you said a few of them.
Yeah.
Right?
So Goodyear has an optional program that allows workers to get tested for bladder cancer, but it's optional. Some people don't take it, don't even know they have this cancer.
Or they don't want to know. Yeah.
Okay, so here's the mapping.
So, so where's the plant?
So the plant is that star right in the middle. Maybe what we could do, John, is zoom in a little bit.
Johnny. Star.
So you see that star right in the middle. That's where the plant is.
So to the northeast of it makes sense with a southwesterly wind.
Okay.
Okay.
So the darker, or I guess.
Yeah, darker shade.
I guess so. Like the pea color right in the middle.
Yeah.
Like I feel like that's the only way to describe it. Thank you. Pea as in like green, not as in like urine.
I think you're dehydrated. You need more water.
That is the place where we're seeing up to 7 times in excess of 7 times of
the normal, right?
Right.
That's crazy.
But it gets, obviously it dissipates as it gets further out. But when you take a look at the neighborhood that's covered generally by all 3 rings here, you get a sense of how many people are actually affected here. And this is a small neighborhood just blocks away from Niagara Falls.
Wow.
So Linda says they didn't say there was no risk, just not an immediate risk, which she thinks is interesting. So Grace wondering, how far does this chemical go? I mean, Grace, that's the mapping from New York State.
That's right, from New York State too.
Yeah, this is not even something that
like you're doing.
Right. Yeah. This is literally coming from the government that says that there is only a potential
in this area.
Correct. So, right. Lori says there is concern for kids that play outside and are breathing this in. Grace wondering, how do they know it doesn't? Do they respond to reports, and were they reported? Grace, explain your question to me, because I think you're responding to something I might have said. But yes, Goodyear knows about this because they've been told back and forth.
So is this chemical give bladder cancer? Is that what it leads to?
Linked to bladder cancer.
And that's why they offer
bladder cancer testing.
Wow.
So, a number of workers, Guy Mort, who I spoke with, has come down with bladder cancer. Not only did he work in the plant, he also has sued Goodyear through a workers' comp case, and they are now paying for his cancer care for his bladder.
Wow.
For life, no less. So it's an interesting story. John, maybe what you could do is throw the link from the original reporting into the comments here. That way everyone can check it out as well. Lynn says it's very nerve-wracking. Here, I'm trying to bring this comment up, and I don't know why I can't. I don't know. I guess my computer's screwing up here. Anyway, Lynn says the things that they keep sweeping under the rug, especially the pollutants with all the Superfund sites in Love Canal, Get UB, or another college that has these resources and can do air quality and soil testing. I actually spoke with a professor of law from UB who works in the Environmental Resource Center also. So she was awesome. Her name is Kim Diana Connolly. She was fabulous. She also is included in my original reporting here. So, when John will put the link to my original reporting in here, and, everything will kind of go from there. Grace says, they're saying there was no risk. How do they know how do they know there's no risk? Great question.
Okay.
Have they done testing? I think all chemicals are dangerous when put in the environment. So they say, based on health-based ambient air guidelines for orthotoluidine, it's set at levels to protect the public from health effects and are more stringent than federal risk thresholds. They also go on to say their annual guideline concentrations are not standards and should not be considered a bright line between concentrations that cause health effects and those that do not. Rather, they are set at a level to inform permitting decisions and reduce emissions with best controls available.
Okay.
Interesting.
Good work, Edward. Good
Thank you.
job.
Appreciate
Yes. You got any others coming down the hike?
Not right now.
Okay.
I'm telling you, this was so much work.
I bet. I mean, you can't mess up like with your stories because you could get in a lot of trouble and get sued. So like I'm sure had to do a lot of work for that.
You want to make sure all your I's are dotted, your T's are
and then you
crossed.
trouble, triple, quadruple check. Yeah. Yeah.
I did.
For you, man.
Jeanette, cover that Leroy chemical scare a few years ago. That was like 10 years ago at least. Remember that with the pandas, the girl in the Leroy who had the ticks?
Oh, yes. And who was it? Erin Brockovich?
Yeah.
They brought her in.
It was called Pandas. Remember that? It was like they got the Dent Center involved. It was a whole big thing.
Yeah. But then they said once they probably would go to like college, it would
Everything would
be
dissipate,
fine.
yeah.
It was a lot. And
Interesting.
I'm assuming it did because we haven't heard anything from it. That was interesting.
One story you're working on. This is the coldest year that we've seen, right?
Well, coldest air we've seen in at least 2 years, could be 6, as we have some very, very cold air that's heading toward us next week. So your weather headlines, the polar vortex, well, that's going to bring the coldest air of the season easily into Western New York Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. The last time our low temperature was 0 was almost 2 years ago, February 4th, 2023. Last time we were below 0, February 1st, 2019, at 4 degrees below 0. So this will be the first time in almost 6 years where temperatures will be below 0. So you're looking at below 0 temperatures Tuesday morning and Wednesday morning. Not record-breaking cold, but dangerously cold. So something to keep in mind for the kids who are going to school next week. I know a lot of schools have midterms, so the kids got to get in there, and it's going to be dangerously cold. So giving you a heads up now.
Superintendents, like when you see this kind of a forecast, I mean, obviously with snow, you're in touch with a lot of superintendents. I mean, is there a concern about kids waiting outside for the bus or?
Yes, there's always that concern. I think you're seeing, it's been an interesting winter, all right? Because they've used a lot of school days already, so they can't do that. And then when you use it for the midterms, that gets very, very tricky.
Yeah.
And
Regents.
when we were doing the interviews, a lot of the superintendents would be like, "Hey, we live in Western New York, so as long as it's going to be cold, not record cold, but certainly frigid. So just if you're sending the kids out, boots, hats, gloves, like common sense stuff. But there are some kids who have to walk far or do connecting buses, and it does get difficult. So if you as a parent feel like it's too dangerous for your kid to go, then you make that call. But I would think that since they've used so many for snow already, that school's still going to be going.
Cindy says, when are we going to warm up again? Still looking for January thaw.
Well, you know what? Friday and Saturday, we're in the 30s.
Oh.
So tomorrow's going to feel like a summer day. But then Saturday, some rain and snow, and then big changes on Sunday. And then we are really cold through right after that.
So my mom is actually in Florida right now, and she was saying last week that it was actually cold.
Yes.
For Florida standards in Florida. But not Western New York cold, but
no, but
cold
like
enough.
50 and 60. That's chilly down there. I know because my son goes to school there, and he'll send me a picture. Like everyone's wearing like a winter hats and stuff, and so we laugh about it. But it's definitely been a cool change. So if you're like a snowbird, and you're like, oh, I'm going to spend January in Florida, you're probably like, oh, really? This is a bummer.
Yeah.
At least you see the sun, which we have really not seen in a couple weeks. But it has been, and it's going to be cold next week for us all the way down to the Gulf Coast. So unfortunately, Florida will be cool as well.
This polar vortex thing, that's kind of interesting. What is, everyone's talking about that, but what the heck is this polar vortex?
So it's the cold air over the poles, over the North Pole. All right. So that cold air generally stays there. But this next week, that polar vortex is kind of going to stretch and make its way into the Great Lakes and then spread all the way down toward the Gulf Coast. So it's the coldest air that's just kind of up in the Arctic, but it's pushing southward next week.
Peter says that I was on a Zoom meeting with my professor last night in Indiana, where it's 9 degrees and 24 degrees here. It felt like a heat wave for Buffalo. Well, we saw that snow a couple of weeks, last week, I guess. in places that don't normally see snow.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
even in like
Places
Ohio.
like, yeah, well, I mean, as far south as like Dallas, they were
Yeah.
worrying about that for the Cotton Bowl. So, yeah.
I was on a meeting with a guy from Cincinnati. He's like, "Oh, we've got 4 inches of snow here. I don't know if I could drive to the office." I'm like, "This is hysterical." 4 inches is like a dusting for us.
You know what? I'm like, we're going to see kind of 1 to 3, maybe 4 today. And I'm like, we're not even, it's not even a headline.
Listen, we got to get the show on the road. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you tomorrow for Friday.